I am so excited to make some more yogurt today. If you saw my last video, then you noticed that the temperature got crazy high on the batch that I was making. Thankfully, it was the kind of probiotic that can handle higher temperatures, so seems to be okay, but that's not great if you're making the lower temperature yogurts like L. Reuteri and L. Gasseri. And those are the two that I'm going to make today at the same time. Not together, but at the same time. My understanding is that you don't want to put them together in the same exact batch, but I'm going to use two different containers in my ultimate probiotic yogurt maker. And because that temperature was so high, I contacted them and let them know, and they agreed that was not good. So what they did was they stood behind their product and they sent me a new one for free. And I didn't even have to send the old one back. So I'm totally impressed. It came pretty quickly, even here in Canada. So I'm going to just unbox that right now and get her going. So the very first thing I'm doing, of course, is just getting it out. And we see here that it did come with the little containers, which is great. I like the big containers for generally for cooking or for making probiotic yogurts, but I would say that for storage and for just general use in the fridge when I'm making my little batch for a meal for that day, then I like to have the little ones because they're just a great size and they work really well. So I'm super happy to have that. So of course the first thing I did was give it a good wash because, you know, it's always good to start with a fresh, clean product. And then I put water in it and just let it cook for a while at the 100-degree level and then checked it a few hours later. Now, what it turned out to be was a little warmer than I would have liked. It came out to 108 degrees, even 109, which was just a little more than I would like, especially for L. Reuteri because apparently it does die at 109, so we don't want that. But what I did find that I think the problem was is that I didn't put enough water in it. Basically, you want it to be quite full. And so what I did afterwards, and I apologize I didn't get this all recorded, but I did fill it up much higher with warm water, not hot, but just warm water, and I let it sit overnight and go at the 100 degrees and checked it the next day and it was much lower. So I think that that was kind of the best way to test it. Just make sure that it's full of stuff, right? So that's how I did it this time. So I'm very encouraged that this next batch is going to work really well. So these are the probiotics that I'm using, the BioGaia, and I'm using the Protectus Mum one, which is a capsule, which I prefer. It has a lot less junk in it. And I'm also using the Mercola L. Gasseri, which is what Dr. Davis recommends. I am adding, this time, it's a little bit different, both inulin and coconut sugar. I'm not going to use as much inulin as Dr. Davis recommends, or sugar for that matter, but I'm hopeful that just adding some of these in will be helpful because I am starting to tolerate the original batch that I did use inulin for, so I'm encouraged that I'm going to be able to keep using that. Now, I've also seen videos, people testing this stuff and saying that inulin is not the ideal thing for feeding your probiotics, particularly L. Reuteri, because I guess it doesn't speed up the propagation of it as well or something along those lines. I don't really know. At this point, I don't have equipment to test all these things, but I'm just using basically my gut to test how is it working. And so what I'm doing here is I'm adding in 4 cups of coconut yogurt into one pot. Usually I do a 2-can batch each time, and that works out really well. You can do 3 cans. I've done that before too. But this time I'm doing 2 cans per batch, so 4 altogether to get it started. So we're going to boil it all together and put in the thickening agent, the agar-agar, and the inulin. Get that up to a boil, and then bring it down to the temperature that is acceptable for the probiotics that I want to add in, and then move them into the jars, each jar, and then put each probiotic into the jars. I am again using the frother a couple of times here to get everything all mixed in really well. Now, when I did add the inulin, because I am for sure not an expert at this by any means, I did add a little bit too much of the warmed up, not hot, but warmed up coconut milk. And because what you want to do is make a slurry. This wasn't exactly a slurry. This was a little bit too wet to be a slurry, so it actually didn't work as well. I had to do a lot more kind of moving the spoon around. Still good to do it in a smaller container, because then you can really get all of the hard bits mushed up so that everything is eventually a slurry. And then when that's done and I've got a good boil for a while, I didn't time it, but I got a while there, so maybe not fully 10 minutes, but probably close to it, that it was up to full temperature. Then I put the big container into a pan of cold water, which needed to be switched out actually pretty quickly because it's a larger pot. So it heated up really fast. So I replaced that and then let it set, and finally remembered that I should put the sugar in now. So while it was still quite warm, stirred in the sugar. And like I said, that's just coconut sugar, organic, simple, plain, unprocessed, whatever. And it seems to be okay for my gut, which is good because sugar is generally a problem for me. So I don't normally use it in anything because I don't want any remnants of it at all. So then I let it sit for quite a while, and I did leave it open, but I made sure that the windows were closed and there was nothing blowing on it, so there wasn't any threat of any kind of contaminants falling in, because that is a potential risk. I know Dr. Davis talks about that. You want to be careful not to let any kind of mold or bacteria or any kind of pollutant fall into it, because that will ruin your yogurt before you even get started, basically. And once I got down to temp, then I put it into each of the containers, just kind of eyeballed it, tried to measure it out as evenly as possible, but I wasn't worried if one was tiny bit, fuller than the other. Not a big deal. And then started with adding in the Gasseri. I was a little disappointed to find that just sitting there in the closed container, this Mercola brand, the actual probiotic inside the capsule kind of almost turned into a rock. Not quite a rock, but almost. And so I'm trying to open it up and spill it in there, but it wouldn't even come out of the capsule. So I ended up having to put it onto a plate and kind of mash it up and then put it in, just kind of stir it around that way. So it still worked out fine in the end, but I was a little surprised to see how much it kind of gummed up together inside the capsule, because it wasn't exposed to anything that would have caused that. And when I opened up all the BioGaia capsules, as you can see here, they were in the same cupboard. They were in the exact same spot, and they were fine. They actually loosened up really nicely. Although I do find that the capsules are so thin that they're actually kind of difficult to open, but I did get them all in there. So I used 10 this time instead of 20, because I have read on other websites, including one of the competitor yogurt makers, that they found using half the number of the gastrus tablets it seems to work just as well. Or I think they even went down to 3 of them, and they found that they still got a really good high probiotic count. So I'm using half the number that I did the first time, but I'm also giving it more to eat, hopefully, with the sugar, and still using some inulin. So I get those all mixed in. And I do like to, you can see behind there that the probiotic maker already has condensation, because I've turned it on ahead of time to get it to the right temperature, so that when I put it in, it's ready to go. Because you don't want to just start with cold water, because then you've got a while before it's going to really start fermenting, because it hasn't been able to get to the temperature that you need. You basically are refrigerating it. And also, when you're working with coconut milk and you're using a thickener, then if you let it get down to too cool, it's going to start to solidify or get thick before you want it to. So definitely best to make sure that it does stay warm. Obviously not hot, because we want to protect those probiotics, but we do want it warmer. So then at this point, I put them in. I also have decided to go back to using the wooden skewers underneath. So I just put some straight in for them to sit on, just to keep them a little bit off the burner, because that seemed to help so well last time. And I definitely want to make sure that this batch comes out well, because, that's a lot of very expensive probiotic that I just put in there, not to mention the actual coconut milk. So I put them in, and as I mentioned in previous videos, I've cut out these silicone tops to put on while the yogurt is being made. Added in a little more water there, as you can see. They didn't have quite enough. I want to make sure that it's pretty full. And then added in these, of course, make sure that they're all nice and clean, and let it sit as well as I can. Make sure that it's all nice and covering it, so everything's pretty well sealed. and then let her go. So set it to 99 degrees, which is what worked for me the very first time that I made this yogurt, and 36 hours. So from there, we'll see how it comes out. Okay, here we go. 36 hours complete. Let's see what happened with these yogurts. Remember, we've got L. reuteri on the right and L. Gasseri on the left. So first thing to do is to check the temperature and see what we ended up with using the skewers and setting it at 99 degrees. And this was a little concerning. I did get up as high as 109. That is, so that's 10 degrees higher than I set it for. It's still just barely okay for these particular strains, particularly the L. reuteri. We don't want to go any higher than that, but that was a little higher than I would like. So I think I'm going to do things a little bit differently next time. I'm going to just set the temperature a little bit lower just to make sure. I will say, I'm a little bit disappointed because this is my replacement device because the other one got so high and shouldn't have. This one's not as bad so far, and this is a full load. This is the first time I've done 2 of these larger jars. But in the end, what we ended up with is, you can see the L. reuteri on the right side looks good. It's still at 109 as well. That's not ideal, but it's workable, just barely. One more temperature and we would see more of the probiotic dying. But I can tell you what we ended up with is a product that tastes exactly like the first one that I did. And this one also includes the coconut sugar this time, which is interesting because it made the yogurt look a little different and act a little bit different. There was definitely still lots of water separation, but that you can also see, sorry, I didn't get a good enough picture of right then and there, but there was little lines all coming up along the sides, and then you can see where the little bubbles have come up and created these lines all through the top of the yogurt sitting in the container. So that was a bit strange. What I am most disappointed by is that the L. Gasseri definitely has mold and possibly yeast on the top. There's fuzziness going on in there, which is very concerning. So that batch got chucked. I'm sad to say I was not going to risk it. It didn't smell bad, so technically it might have been edible, but I didn't want to risk it, not with my health. So, and those are the weird little lines that was created in the L. reuteri. I have been eating that, and it turned out very nice. I'm very happy with it. It tastes good, and other than lots of separation of the water, as usually happens, everything is good with that one. So I am going to have to make more L. Gasseri soon, and I think this time I will make the new batch without the coconut sugar and see if that is the thing that makes the difference, because it's very strange to have one that goes bad and one that is fine. And when I previously made the L. Gasseri, I had no problems with it. So that was just with the inulin. So I think I will go back to using the inulin again. And if you watched earlier videos, you know that I wasn't using inulin for a while because I was having problems with my gut, but it seems to be handling it much better now. So I'm going to go ahead and put some in there to try and encourage as much probiotic growing as possible. So that is how this one came out. Sort of good and sort of bad in some ways, but we will press on and continue. And I'm still hopeful that it will go better in the future and that this will still be a long-term thing that I can keep doing, because overall I'd have to say I think my gut's really starting to really like this. There is also the possibility that just putting the silicone mats on top, maybe that's not quite enough. It should be, you know, it's not tight sealed, but it's flat over top of it all. So there isn't really movement of air or water or anything going on there. So it shouldn't be the issue, but I will definitely keep an eye on that and see if it might end up being that way. I just really would rather not have to use plastic, but I will in the end if I have to, as I did in the beginning. Those ones came out fine. So again, this is all just trial and error, and I'm new to this, and I think that as Dr. Davis as well keeps on researching different things and changing his mind on what should be done in different protocols, then I'm going to keep on trying different things too. And we're all just kind of, as it has been said, we are out in the wild, wild west of the yogurt world and trying to create all these different things. And I know you're not even supposed to call it yogurt because it's not like the kind of stuff you would buy at the store. It's a little different probiotics. I also have several probiotics that I want to buy as well to try, not just these ones, but there's a few other ones that I think could be really interesting to just see how they might repopulate in my gut and get things going even better. And Lord willing, that may help my health down the road, which would be fantastic. So thanks for watching, and God bless.